Sonoma. Turn 11. That white and red Chevy slices across the stripe, and a record shatters wide open. 8 victories, each one carved on courses where most drivers simply hang tough. Shane Van Gisbergen just did it again, dragging history right along for the ride. Crazy part? Nobody saw this coming. 3 years back, the entire garage swore he'd flame out fast. Dead wrong, all of them. So wherever you're watching from, couch, phone, break room at work, strap in tight, because the real story isn't whether SVG belongs up front. It's how a driver they laughed at became their unlikely king. Laughed at. That's exactly where this story starts. Back home in Australia, Van Gisbergen wasn't some nobody. The man stacked up 3 Supercars titles, a beast on twisty tracks across the other side of the ocean. But stock cars? Different animal entirely. When Trackhouse Racing handed him a cup ride in 2023, the paddock didn't clap, it chuckled. Here's a road racer with 0 laps around an American oval, no clue how these heavy machines bite and slide. Veterans figured he'd embarrass himself by summer. Then Chicago happened. His very first cup start, on a street course nobody had raced before, and SVG drove away from the entire field like he'd been doing it for decades. Rain, chaos, walls inches away, none of it rattled him. Should have settled the argument right there. It didn't. Critics waved it off as a fluke. One wild weekend, one weird track, one lucky foreigner who got the bounces. The doubt didn't shrink after Chicago. It dug in deeper. Fans, reporters, rival crews, plenty of them kept right on betting against the New Zealander, season after season. 3 full years of it. So here's what nobody in that garage stopped to ask. Why were so many sharp racing minds reading this one guy completely wrong? Wrong, but not random. There's a reason the smartest people in racing whiffed on this read, and it's got a name. Psychologists call it availability bias. Here's how it works in plain terms. The brain grabs the loudest, easiest fact sitting in front of it and treats that single clue like the whole truth. For SVG, the one loud fact was obvious. No oval experience. It's all the paddock could see. A road racer. Some foreigner. Guy who'd never turned left for a living on NASCAR's bread and butter tracks. And once that label stuck, every brain in the garage quietly tossed out anything that didn't match it. His ridiculous car control filtered out. That ice-cold calm when the pressure cranked sky high, ignored. A knack for reading a race 3 moves ahead didn't fit the story, so nobody counted it. This is the stuff Ghost Lap lives for. The why underneath the what. If that's your kind of breakdown, hit subscribe and ride along, because we do this every single week. Now, back to the bias. The doubters weren't dumb. They were simply human. Their minds locked onto one shiny detail and went totally blind to everything else. Once you spot that trap, you can't ever unsee what it cost them. So what did it cost them? A front row seat to the history they swore would never happen. Look at the scoreboard now. 8 cup wins for Van Gisbergen, and every single one came on a road or street course. That's not a hot streak. It's a takeover. Plain and simple. Sunday's checkered flag broke his tie with Chase Elliott, a former champion and one of the most respected wheelmen of his generation. SVG didn't just match Elliott. He passed him. Next name on the list? Tony Stewart, a Hall of Famer, 3-time Cup champ. And now Van Gisbergen sits dead even with him on the all-time road course wins chart. One name left above him. Jeff Gordon. 9 wins. The standard. Nobody's touched it in years. Sit with that number for a second. But here's the gut punch nobody wants to say out loud. Stewart needed a whole career to stack his road course wins. Gordon raced hundreds upon hundreds of times. SVG got there in 68 starts. 68. That's it. No driver in the history of this sport has climbed the road course ladder this fast. He's already the winningest active racer on these tracks, and he's barely getting warm. The doubters didn't just miss. They got it catastrophically backwards. And Sunday at Sonoma proved it in living color. Van Gisbergen started 6th, then went to work. Once he cycled to the front, the race belonged to him. 74 of the 110 laps led, start to finish a clinic in control. This wasn't luck. It was a plan. He flipped the stages on purpose, short pitting while rivals chased points, setting himself up to lead clean air when it counted most. Smart, cold, surgical. Vintage Van Gisbergen. Chase Briscoe gave everything he had. With a handful of laps to go, he reeled SVG in close enough to touch the back bumper, then bobbled into turn 1 and threw it away. 0.3 of a second. That's the gap at the stripe. Behind the win, chaos rewrote the championship. Denny Hamlin spun late and limped home 26th. Ugly day. Somehow, he still walked out holding the series points lead. The first handoff all season long. How? Because the man he took it from had it worse. Tyler Reddick's steering let go. The crew dug under the hood. The laps piled up, and the points leader finished dead last in 36th. One race flipped the whole title picture, just like that, and the second SVG climbed out. The old resistance roared back, and not over his driving. 8 wins deep, and a loud slice of the fanbase still won't give Van Gisbergen his due. Their complaints don't change. He's not American. The man came up through some foreign series. He never paid his dues grinding around the ovals like a real NASCAR guy. Notice what's missing from that list? His talent. Nobody's arguing he can't drive. They insist he doesn't belong. That's not a racing take. It's tribe, pure and simple. Humans are wired for it. We pick our group, we guard it, and we treat outsiders like a threat, even when the outsider is flat out brilliant. NASCAR's identity got built on a certain story: Southern roots, American steel, real grit, drivers who clawed up through dirt tracks and Saturday night short tracks. Then along comes a Kiwi who skips the whole script and beats everybody at their own game. Some folks can't swallow that, so they move the goalposts. First it was, he can't do it. Now it's sure, but it doesn't count. Data screams elite. The tribe still whispers outsider. That tension exposes something uncomfortable about all of us. Because if 8 trophies and a spot beside Tony Stewart won't earn respect, then what on earth actually does? What does it actually take? SVG just handed us the answer, whether the holdouts like it or not. He proved that real racecraft doesn't care where you're from. Talent behind a wheel travels. Always has. It crosses oceans, jumps series, ignores accents and passports and the right kind of background. Trackhouse racing proved something too. While the experts trusted the old playbook, that team gambled on raw ability, and the bet paid off huge. Now comes the part NASCAR has to face. For decades, the sport preached one gospel: you earn cup-level speed by grinding years on ovals first. Van Gisbergen tore that rule in half. The assumption was simply wrong, and the proof keeps parking in victory lane. Plain as day. So where does this go next? He's tied with Stewart at 8. One man stands ahead, Jeff Gordon, with 9. Catch him, and the conversation shifts from great road racer to greatest road racer who ever lived. Let that sink in. A driver they laughed out of the building 3 years ago is now hunting the all-time crown. The doubters were wrong. They were loudly, publicly, completely wrong, and almost nobody listened to the few who saw it. Verdicts locked in, but the story itself? Still running hard. Here's the one truth NASCAR can't dodge anymore. Shane Van Gisbergen didn't just win races. He rewrote who's even allowed to. They doubted him. Then came the laughter. In the end, the argument was lost completely. That's the Ghost Lap promise, week after week. The story behind the story. The why behind the win. The truth those headlines skip right over. So go hit subscribe and ride right along. Next time, you won't simply watch history. You'll finally understand it.